Welcome to This Week in Local, a Locology podcast featuring lively conversations about the local digital ecosystem, hosted by Locology analysts Mike Bolin and Charles Loughlin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Local. I have as my guest today, Andrew Shotland, CEO of Local SEO Guide. Andrew, how are you?
I'm quite well, Charlie. How about yourself?
That's a very deep voice there, Andrew. Okay, we're going to do a quick round on AI. So quickly, Local SEO Guide, sort of self-explanatory company name. This is going to be AI and SEO focused. So first question, the question on everyone's mind, is AI, ChatGPT, whatever version of that you want to talk about, a real existential threat to Google?
The answer is no. It's an existential threat to parts of Google that I would argue are already under existential threat. So what I mean by that is Google killed traffic to a bunch of websites that were supplying content that was basically questions easy to answer. Meaning, what time is it? Or what time is it in Singapore? That kind of stuff. Or what's the weather like in Kentucky? And so several years ago, Google started serving up those kinds of answers as instant answers, and traffic to websites that got a lot of traffic for those kind of queries died. Apple is coincidentally has done kind of the same thing to Google in that a lot of the kind of juiciest searches Apple has kind of taken for its own. So like if you use an iPhone and you do a local search, you're going to get Apple Maps locations or results. If you do a music search, you might get Apple Music search, that kind of stuff. And so ChatGPT and other similar AI tools like that are making it so that I no longer have to go to a search engine to get the answer. So as an example, if you've ever, there are certain Excel formulas I use over and over again, and sometimes I forget them, and I go to Google and I type how to do this stupid Excel thing, and I get a website that gives me the answer. I almost never have to do that again because ChatGPT is really great at basically telling me how to do some obscure Excel formula. We use in SEO, we use something called regular expressions. If you're a coder, you would call it regex or regex. And now I can just go to ChatGPT and ask for a regular expression that does all sorts of crazy things. And it really works well. Whereas I used to spend maybe 30 minutes looking on Stack Overflow, trying to find out if someone figured that out, and I'd get Stack Overflow by searching Google. So a lot of those searches, I think, are going away. That, of course, depends upon how much it actually costs to use things like ChatGPT, which we don't know what that's going to be. So if it's free, that's going to hurt all those queries in Google. If it's pay per play, then I don't think Google has a lot to worry about even for those kind of queries, because most of us are cheapskates.
Do you think Google has played this right to this point? I mean, because that question is out there, and there was some reporting about there was an all hands meeting at Google, for example, where
Code Red.
Yeah, and there's like supposedly Code Red. Supposedly a team has been assembled, But from your perch, do you think Google is handling this properly?
I'm sorry, I just keep thinking of that scene from A Few Good Men with Google, the Google CEO going, "Damn right, I ordered that Code Red." I guess so, yeah. Like, I don't think overnight ChatGPT is going to basically become the default thing and everyone's going to abandon Google. I don't think that's going to happen. And I would imagine, if Google's to be believed, I imagine they have similar functionality available. And the challenge they have is, where do the ads show up, right? And so I think if I were Google, I might introduce, if they in fact have it, I might introduce it in very low value queries, like kind of the queries I was talking about, where I just need an Excel formula and that kind of thing. I can go there. And I think people still are going to want a selection of results for a lot of queries, because this AI stuff is not going to get it right. As you can see from ChatGPT, it's a very clever idiot, right? it has the appearance of really good stuff, but when you read it deeply, you're like, maybe this makes sense. I don't know, right? So it gets a lot of stuff wrong.
Well, this morning I was just looking at, I guess it's CNET has been using, not ChatGPT specifically, I don't think, but AI to generate, it sort of wrote article, and the more sort of standard articles on its platform.
Right.
And then apparently
the SEO crap is what you're talking about.
I guess, yeah.
Right.
And apparently it's now being told most of those articles are riddled with errors. And I think now that could be read as AI doesn't work. I read that as AI is still in its early days.
Well,
does that something like that surprise you? How do you react to that? And how does that?
No, in fact, AI has been an amazing business model for Local SEO Guide. We got hired last year by a pretty big company that had done something similar to CNET and had thousands of pages that were crap, and they needed someone to rewrite them, and they hired us to do it. So we love AI. I think the way we're approaching AI, and the way I'm assuming most like smart companies are doing it, is you can use it as a starting point, and then you need to have like an editing process. And so you need to figure out first the whole art to AIs and prompts, like what to ask the AI to get the output you want. And then you've got to have a good editing process because you have to check it. And so it's still, the jury's kind of still out about how much you can save just using AI versus human writers and things like that.
That sounds just like hiring very young writers.
Exactly. Or very old writers who,
yeah.
suck.
Granted, whose stuff is riddled with typos. Yeah. Fair enough. But again, that's that you're automating step one. That's what you just described to me. You're automating step one. Step two still involves skilled human intervention.
Actually, you're automating step two. Step one is the prompts.
Okay.
I can't underscore enough. Like that's a whole art into itself, prompting. So I'll give you an example. We're running a test right now with a multi-location brand where we want to rewrite, let's say, 1,000 location pages for them because they have it's the same template copy for everyone, insert location here. And we're like, I wonder if we make these unique, it should yield something better out of Google. And typically we see when you make content unique, it tends to outperform. So we have spent a fair amount of time thinking about what are the right prompts to get the kind of data that we want in these articles. And we're going to take the templated article that's already there, and instead of rewriting it completely, we're going to add on to it. So now our editors just have to look at maybe a paragraph or two in over 1,000 pages versus a whole article, right? And so we think that this technique, this machine plus human, what we're calling Terminator 2, very successful combination. We think that's the way to use AI, at least for content generation.
So this is what you are doing, correct?
Yeah.
And has it saved you? Will it save you headcount ultimately, do you think?
Like I said, the jury is out. I think so the way our model works is we have an editorial staff that are full-time heads, and then we outsource all the writing to freelancers we've worked with. And so what I think it's going to do is shift our resources to editing versus writing for the most part. When we're using this technique, we'll still use writers for a lot of things because like we have a client that sells industrial lasers, and I don't think we're going to get AI to really write something nuanced about industrial lasers.
That sounds like the perfect application for AI is to write about industrial lasers. But
it's funny because I don't know anything about them, so I was like, yeah, we should just do it with ChatGPT because they'll be at least as good as I'll be. But thankfully, I'm not ready for them.
Okay, a little bit of a gear shift. You described a little bit about how it impacts Google, how it's changing your business a little bit. Sort of in the local SEO world, how do you think AI is going to change how companies have to approach SEO?
Uh, I think it's actually AI is not the thing that's going to create this dramatic change. I think it's machine learning, which for most people it's the same thing. Like
conflated.
Yeah, but really more creating systems to basically get kind of instantaneous feedback on how things perform and then adjust things automatically based on that feedback. I think that's the real future of SEO. So there's some techniques out there right now. Like there are a bunch of companies that will sell like a thing that will adjust, the linking on your site by an algorithm, and that's kind of halfway there. So those are the kind of things that I think will affect not just local SEO but all SEO. But I think in general, most of the noise and applications will be around content creation.
Okay, so what you're correct me if I'm wrong, which is the checklist for local SEO isn't really going to change, but the methodology for which that checklist is executed might be automated to a certain degree by machine learning. Is that about it?
Well, no, I'm sorry, I'm being obtuse.
Maybe not.
So I think in practice, the main change to local SEO will probably be a massive increase in AI-assisted content.
Yeah.
Because the problem with local SEO is, let's say you're an agency and you have, or a multi-location brand, you have 1,000 locations. You really can't afford to create custom content for each one unless the ROI is amazing, right? And so I think you're going to see a lot of agencies, a lot of in-house teams like experimenting with this scale content creation. But I think that's not where the innovation is going to be. I think the innovation is going to be in using these techniques to do this kind of automated feedback loop where you're actually getting a machine to update the content without you even interfering, right? That's the sweet spot. So imagine this, and tell me if I'm getting too much in the weeds. Like we see a page used to rank number one for a keyword in Google, let's just say podcasting, and then it goes down to number 3. Now we have a machine scrape the content of number 1 and go figure out what the difference is between that content and content on your page and rewrite the page, right? Or make recommendations to rewrite the page, something like that. And I could see that kind of thing taking off.
Okay, so agencies, how should I'm an agency doing multi-location marketing. So how, in your observation, how are they, or how will they, or how should they be incorporating this into their?
Well, I think most agencies will just buy a tool off the shelf and use it, and because that's the easiest thing, and most agencies probably won't have a development team to kind of iterate on their own version of it. So I think these tools, whatever. So there's one called Jasper that's been marketing the crap out of themselves. That's a writing tool.
Yeah.
My guess is those companies will see a huge amount of demand over the next year as people kick the tires on it. Like everyone's going to shift some budget to figure out like AI stuff. Okay. And but if you have your own development team and you have some interesting ideas, you can create some differentiated things. That's what we're trying to do. We're not just trying to like copy what Jasper AI is doing. We're trying to come, okay, we have clients with unique needs. We don't want a one size fits all thing. We want to really go after like these very niche things that we think we can do that another tool won't do. So okay. Like a location page thing is like a perfectly good example. Like it's just going to take a while to nail that. And a tool like Jasper is not going to nail that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Every third Instagram ad I see, I think, is for Jasper or some AI content creation.
You clicked on the wrong link one day.
Yeah, I must have. Yeah. And or it's just mocking me. I'm not sure which.
Right.
Probably a combination of the two. Okay. Right. So kind of, panning back a little bit, where do you see the disruptions happening most? Because we love talking about disruption, right? So where do you see, we've talked about content creation is going to change, but it's not going to go away, but it's going to change, right? where do you see other places where you see disruptions in things that you're dealing with or things that you're observing, if nothing else?
Well, I do think the first disruption is to writers.
Mhm.
Writers are going to have to shift what their skill set is, like from purely writing to like kind of like I said, like this prompt creation and almost shifting more to editing, right? So I think that's definitely a thing in our space. As far as where the disruption is going to come, well, here's what I think the disruption is, and I don't know whether this is AI or not. I think right now, a lot of the data we get to do SEO is data overload. I'm sure in every marketing discipline, every discipline everywhere, you get too much information. And there's a lot of amazing tools that will give us all this data. But it's like, how do we figure out what to do with them? And so people like us have created processes for human beings to do stuff, take it out of SEMrush, let's say, and figure it out and apply it to a website. I think what you're going to see are companies that figure out how to string all these things together so it's more like push a button or enter a keyword and a website, and we do 90% of the work for you. That's the disruption, I think, that's going to happen.
Okay. And at the beginning, I think you made reference to a lot of this depends on, at least in terms of GPT, how much it costs. I think there's been some talk about them coming out with a paid version. I haven't really looked at that closely, but what do you think OpenAI can do to really screw this up? That's one way
to screw it up.
Yeah, the opportunity that they have with this, and there's others that will come along if they don't fully optimize their opportunity. But
well, I guess the my first thought is that if Google really has a great version of this and they just release it for free, like, that creates some challenges for OpenAI. Although I don't think, maybe not, because like Google does plenty of things that there's plenty of business outside of working with Google on it. So, so I don't know how they screw it up. It seems like they're in a pretty amazing position right now. So my guess is if they don't nail the use cases quick enough and someone else comes out with a much better way to do something. That's about the most lame generic thing I can think of.
Okay. All right, Andrew, that's fine. I mean, I thought it would be something to do with, coming out with too expensive a paid version, sort of, but I don't think they'd be that dumb. Yeah.
But, like the early adopters will pay a lot for it, right? If they think they'll get some advantage. And so maybe it might make sense for it to be expensive. It seems like they're trying to go after the entire planet with the way they opened it up, but I don't know.
It feels like everyone's trying to figure out how to employ it. And there is there's a lot of costs embedded in the usage of it for them.
Yeah. I think if I were them, I guess they want it to be I can't tell whether they want to be a consumer brand or B2B brand, or if they want to be like a platform that other people create applications on. If I were them, I think I'd want to figure out what's the juiciest thing we could own, and then give the niche applications to everyone else, so I can create the OpenAI for medicine or something, right? Because I know so much about medicine. Right,
and who knows? We'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll see is always a good place to end these conversations, right? So
exactly.
Andrew,
check back with me in a year.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, Andrew, thanks a lot for coming on. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me, as always, Charles.
Okay. See you soon. Thank you.
See you.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Locology's This Week in Local with Mike Boland and Charles Lockland. Be sure to subscribe for more.